俺は狂気のマッドサイエンティスト法院京馬だ。
Welcome back to the Anime Culture Corner. Almost a decade after airing, Steins Gate remains as one of the most renowned anime in recent history. And I think a large part of this owes to our beloved protagonist, Okabe Rintarou, aka
法院京馬
And when you look at other top anime, like Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, Gintama, Legend of the Galactic Heroes, they all build a huge world with a vast cast of characters. And I think that creating a show like Steins Gate, while only focusing on 8 of them, our 8 beloved lab members, is a testament to the show's high rating. And I think that Okabe carries that burden for the most part. In this video, I'll talk about the complexities of Okabe and what makes him such an incredible character and one of the most intriguing protagonists in recent anime history. Or I guess, not so recent now. And to preface, this is simply my interpretation of Okabe's character arc and the messages I felt from it. I'm sure there's hundreds of different theories to explain how he acted. And of course, before I begin, spoiler warning ahead. I think this is one of the most important questions to address, considering just how integral Hououin Kyoma is to developing Okabe's character. We see by the first episode that Hououin Kyoma is pretty shameless. Even as an 18-year-old college student, he's unafraid to challenge Dr. Nakabachi's questionable lecture. But I think more than just being an excuse for Oka to be childlike and sometimes obnoxious to any new characters he meets, it acts as a self-defense mechanism for him. Being Hououin is his way of handling situations where he's uncomfortable or feels like he would be judged by society. We see this a lot when he's with Kurisu. In their first interaction, when he realizes who she is, he reverts to being Hououin and becomes flustered when she finds out that he's not actually talking to anyone on the phone. This is one of the first cues that shows it's less like an act and more like a natural way of defending himself. Once someone sees through it, it does rattle him. The shamelessness he exudes as Hououin is his way of scaring people away from seeing who he really is. It's the idea that if he'll be an outsider in society because of the way he acts, he might as well fully embrace it. This also explains his shtick of having a nickname for everyone. It's his way of keeping some kind of wall between them, as Okabe is inherently scared of letting anyone see what he's really like. I'll come back to this fear later. But it's also being seen used again in this way when Kurisu confesses to him about her situation with her father in the park. When confronted with a serious topic, he reverts to being Hououin Kyoma. But instead of unsettling Kurisu, it's rather Okabe's only way of being honest about the topic. It's because of the social anxiety he feels from being in this kind of open, awkward situation that he isn't used to. In a way, even though Hououin makes Okabe feel like a super fictional character, it's a reflection of the very real social awkwardness that many people feel burdened by, and reverting to the mad scientist persona is his way of coping with it and defending himself from being exposed to the harshness and reality of society. And when we see Okabe start to abandon this persona once he begins the time loop to save Mayuri, it reflects an extremely important shift in his personality and the way he expresses himself. Einstein has a very famous quote about the description of what insanity means. That it's doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And I think that the way that this quote reflects Okabe's continuous repetitions of time is a very purposeful connection made by Steins Gate's creator. As he continues to try and save Mayuri, you can see that he's going more and more insane each time. Einstein also claims that time is relative and it's simply an illusion, which is only fitting when we consider that Okabe's time loop is, while endless for him, only a matter of seconds for anyone else. This connection to relativity is furthered when we see time stop each time Mayuri dies. The motifs referencing the stopped hourglass and Mayuri's watch aren't just visual cues for the audience to know the soon-to-be tragedy, but they instead hint at the relativity of time. The fact that time has finally stopped for Okabe, that he can't go further than this point, shows that he's gone too far. It's no longer something that he can manipulate, but rather it decides his fate now. I feel like the title of each episode of Steins Gate is ignored by many viewers as just scientific jargon. But there was one that stuck out to me during the time loop, and it was titled Endless Apoptosis. Apoptosis is when a cell bursts from some kind of internal or external stress. It implies that Okabe is this cell, endlessly breaking apart from the inside, and it felt like one of the best ways to describe what he was going through. That he was being shattered each time Mayuri died and had to bring himself together just to do it all over again. One of the very first lines Okabe says in the show is that he who holds wisdom is the greatest fool, and that God would punish them, which is reminiscent of the myth of Prometheus. Prometheus brought fire, a privilege exclusive to the gods, to mankind. He was then punished by God for it by having an eagle eat out his liver, only to have it regenerate again the next day to be feasted over and over again for eternity. Okabe made time travel a reality, an ability that shouldn't be within the hands of humans, and he was punished endlessly for it with Mayuri's death. Just as Prometheus was hung naked from a rock and left to be preyed upon by the eagle, Okabe loses his persona of Hououin to protect him anymore and is left at his most vulnerable. He feels like he can't tell anyone what he's going through, which is fair because no one understands. And as he's reaching his breaking point, screaming out how it was just simple curiosity and that it was just a game, we see him question where his drive has brought him. In his flashback with Mayuri, he uses a line from a TV show to claim her as his hostage. And it's very possible that this persona might be his only way of keeping that promise to always protect her. And now that he feels he can't do that, we're left with just Okabe. And after the mistakes he's made, undoing every person's D-mail while literally fixing time, also acts as a different trial for him that he must overcome. To become Hououin Kyoma, who I feel like is just as real of a part of his identity as Okabe is. I feel like every single time Okabe had to fix a D-mail while dealing with the internal issues of his fellow lab members, it also served as a different lesson for him each time. The Ferris timeline helps him to understand the cost of messing with someone's life, that the decisions he made thus far to send D-mails can't be made so easily, and that his pursuit of knowledge forced Ferris to decide between the death of Mayuri and her father, a burden that Okabe must carry knowing that he's partially responsible for it. And as he goes through the Ruka timeline, he sees that the person he's been recently isn't who he truly is. The abandonment of his lab coat is a visual cue of the fact that, by this point, he's lost himself through the endless timelines he's traversed through. Just as he states that Rukaku will always stay as Rukaku in his eyes, no matter what their gender is, he reaffirms that he will always be Okabe Rintarou, that he will always be the mad scientist Hououin Kyoma, before he faces arguably the biggest trial he's faced in the show thus far, the decision to allow Mayuri or Kurise to die. As he solves the Moeka timeline and talks with Kurisu, we witness their emotional discussion revealing just what kind of mental toll that 3 weeks took on Okabe. How he began to think of Mayuri's death less as a tragedy and rather just a reference point, and how he might truly be broken as he leaves pieces of himself in each Alpha world line. I feel like this is the first time that we see Okabe faced with a decision that truly has no right or wrong answer. Just as Ferris had to decide between lives, he must do the same now. And just as he reaffirmed who Ruka was in his eyes, he must decide if an Okabe with Mayuri or an Okabe with Kurisu is his real identity. But the real tragedy is that whatever decision he makes, he will still be the only one who remembers this journey. That just as he felt like an outsider from the beginning of the story, he's again left as the only person who can understand himself at the end, as he finally makes it to the Beta world line, one without Kurisu. I think this is what makes the final moments of episode 23 so incredible, as he's left at his most broken after killing Kurisu, believing again that he will forever deal with the consequences imposed upon him by God. We see the long-awaited comeback of Hououin Kyoma, the part of the character that we grew to love before the time loop, the honest part of him that embraced his uniqueness and standout character in society, regardless of what anyone thought. Few anime have successfully brought a character back from such a tragic point, especially in such a short, concise show. The pride, the shamelessness, everything about Hououin Kyoma's return and its contrast to the complex web of timelines that formed the broken Okabe that we had struggled with for so many episodes. I couldn't even say anything the first time I watched this scene, and any time after. Except, of course,
Head, the side, a kangaroo.
I feel like since there's so many comparisons you can draw Okabe to, it reflects how multifaceted and complex a character he is. And I certainly don't think I could fit all of that in one video. So what did you guys think? Leave a comment telling me what you thought about Okabe's story arc. And as always, this has been the Anime Culture Corner. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for future, in-depth show and character analyses.